Hey guys, Mitch here. Welcome back to me some mods. I hope you're all doing well. It's been 1 week since I upgraded to the new Logitech Pro racing wheel and pedals. We're going to have a chat about how it compares to my G29, what it's like to drive, compatibility, if I stand by my decision to purchase this wheel, and finally a recommendation on whether I think you should spend your hard-earned dollars on buying one for yourself. Stick around, let's get to it. Okay guys, probably the most important question you have to ask yourself when you're buying a new wheel is, does it feel good to actually drive on? I mean, that is the whole purpose of buying a racing wheel. Does it feel good to go and race around with? After putting about 30 hours of gameplay through this one, I can happily report back and say this thing feels absolutely incredible. I've got nothing I can fault this on. The slightly bigger wheel feels really nice in the hands. It kind of makes it feel more like a car than a go-kart like the old G920 did. It's just that little bit too small. I feel like this one might be a little bit thinner as well. It seems to just fit a bit easier into my hands. The vibration and the force feedback in this thing is absolutely ridiculous. This thing has got plenty of power. And I don't think, realistically, I'm running this now. I've been playing for a little bit. I've set it to about 8 Newton meters and I run it at about 70% in game. And if I'm honest, I'm pretty happy with how that feels. It's not too much, but it's definitely stronger than what the old one was. And you've definitely got a lot of extra feelings, and I don't know, you can feel every bump, rock and ripple. It's quite good like that. This wheel is very precise. I will say, the one thing I have changed on it is I turned the True Force noise effects down. So if you have them all the way up, it vibrates your steering wheel when you're with your engine basically. So I didn't turn it all the way off. I dialed it back to about 20% and it just seems to be the sweet spot. So it's kind of always vibrating a little bit, but it kind of just gives you a bit of a real life feel. I do recommend turning that down a little bit. Maybe they'll update it in the future and they'll make it a little bit more realistic, or some other games will utilize it a bit different. But yeah, the wheel itself feels phenomenal. The pedals, I must say, in comparison to the old ones, the pedals are actually a little bit bigger, and they also have a lot greater, it's probably double, it feels like double the range of motion compared to the G29. So it actually feels a lot more realistic. Again, like the wheel, having that slightly bigger diameter wheel makes it feel more like a real car. These pedals, exact same thing, that it just feels a lot more lifelike and it feels more natural. In terms of actual driving, like steering response, again, super smooth this thing. I was blown away just how smooth it was. There's no notchiness, you can't feel any resistance that you're not meant to be feeling, if that makes sense. The only fight you've really got with this wheel is what the force feedback's giving you, which is pretty much what you want. Now this, I'll come clean on this is my first ever direct drive wheel. I've never actually been hands-on with another one prior to this, so I don't have any points of reference. As I said, I'm purely comparing this to the G29 because that's what I've known. I've known it for 4 years. I'm very comfortable with that wheel, very familiar, and this was an upgrade for me. A little bonus point I have noticed with this one is the vibration in this thing is that strong. On my next level racing cockpit thing, it's actually like having a butt kicker. It vibrates, the vibrations are strong enough, it vibrates the entire rig, and it's like having a haptic device on the bottom of your seat. It's a little bit of a hidden Easter egg I wasn't expecting, but I was happily surprised about it. In terms of driving though, this thing is super precise. There is no dead zone in the middle. If you guys have played Gran Turismo before, and you've done the kart racing, you'll know that it's almost impossible to drive in a straight line. Well, it was on the G29 anyway. It had a big dead zone at the top. Oh, we're crashing. There we go. Too busy talking. Yeah, it had a big dead zone at the top, so you couldn't actually drive the thing straight ahead. So if you held the wheel dead center and locked it in place, the go-kart would actually bounce left to right because it just bounced within the dead zone. There was nothing you could do to fix it. This wheel has none of those issues at all. It is rock solid, super precise. I don't think I've actually got faster because of it, but I do feel like I got more precise, which sets me up for going faster because you can feel so much more stuff through it. It just feels more intuitive to jump into corners a little bit differently. I don't necessarily think my driving style has changed too much, if at all, that I've picked up on. Again, I'm not a super long way into this adventure with this wheel. We've only got about 25 to 30 hours or so. But yeah, so far I am super impressed with how this is going. I like the fact that I have the ability to crank the power up if I want to. If I grow, it's given me like a lot more. I'd rather have something I can drive at 70% and have 30% extra to grow into, or if I feel I ever need to go that far, which, to be 100% fair, I'm pretty happy with how this feels. I don't feel the need to push it any harder, but I like that I have the option. I like that I'm not pushing this thing at 100%. So where I've got it set to now would pretty much be on par with the Fanatec DT GT Pro with the 8 Newton meter boost. It is the other wheel I was looking at when I bought this one. As I've previously said, they're really hard to get a hold of in Australia, so that was one of the nails in the coffin for that one for me. I am hoping in the near future that they bring out some peripherals for this wheel, like a nice H pattern shifter and like a handbrake, a hydraulic handbrake type thing. As I have done a fair few rally type races in this, and like trying to use the buttons on the wheel. Don't get me wrong, the way they've set it out, it actually works okay. Your thumb kind of naturally sits on it. But when you're midway through a corner and you're crossed up and you just need a rip on it, it's just not there, and it would just make it a lot more useful. Not so much an issue for PC players. You guys have the full USB functionality there where you can just plug it in, download the driver, and off you go. For console stuff, it's generally a little bit trickier than that. It has to be part of the ecosystem. I am going to buy a cheap handbrake just to test it. It might be different on PS5, but we'll see how we go. Other than that, I cannot fault this wheel. I absolutely love it. Compared to the G20 or G29, these things are light years ahead. They're not even really comparable. They are that different. Okay guys, that wraps up the hands-on driving review section of this video. We're going to move on to compatibility. Now, I have had a chance to try this on a few different titles. Gran Turismo, which is what you just saw me racing on then on PS5, works flawlessly, cannot fault it, no issues to report. Assetto Corsa, the original one, I've tried that on both PC and PlayStation 5. On PlayStation, it worked perfectly. On PC, I got some weird force feedback issues. I'm not sure if it was just some settings that I haven't got around to fiddling with yet, but it was jolting from side to side. High speed, low speed, it didn't really matter. I also had some weird things where I felt like the brakes weren't necessarily working properly. I did map all the pedals and the buttons and everything, so it was all set up. It could have just been the car I had potentially. It's been a while since I played that game and couldn't quite remember, but I remember it braking a bit better than it did. But as I said, PS5, it worked flawlessly. I've also tested Forza Horizon 5 on PC. Worked perfectly, didn't even have to map any buttons, I just plugged it in and off it went. The force feedback is very strong, it's set quite high when you first jump into that. Again, I'm not sure if that was something I changed because I did run the G29 on it, so yeah, there is that potential in the background as well. But happy to report it does work perfectly. In the future, I am going to get around to testing Beam NG. I know that's a bit of a funny one that people are starting to get into a little bit more lately. I haven't got iRacing or anything. I'm not that far into it yet. I may go down that road at some point in the near future. If you guys have any other games you want me to test this out on, chuck a comment down below and I will do my best to get around to it. It may take me a little bit, particularly if I have to save up and buy the game. But yeah, same goes for the actual wheel. If you got things you want me to experiment with and test, leave me a comment. I'll do my best. As always, I try to answer everyone's as best as I can. And yeah, if we get enough questions and comments, I'll make another video and try to address as many of them as I can. Alrighty guys, time for the hard questions. Do I regret my decision of purchasing this wheel? No, I do not. Would I recommend you guys spend your hard-earned dollars on buying this? I'm going to split this into two sections because the answer is yes, but I've got a caveat for that and I think it kind of needs to be addressed. So, for the people that are already into sim racing and say they've been on a G29 like I was for a couple of years, and they've decided that they're sticking with the hobby and the sport and they want to upgrade to something nicer, a little bit more precise, a little bit more powerful, 100% if you've got the cash there, go and buy one. You will not be disappointed. The grin that you already had from racing around will just get bigger. You can feel more, it's a nicer experience to drive, it feels more realistic. Part two, which is the caveat for this, is would I recommend this for someone who's just looking to enter into the hobby and they're not 100% sure if this is for them? And I would honestly probably say no. These things are about $2,000 to buy in Australia. It is not a small amount of money. And I think if you're just looking to enter the sport and you're not sure if you're going to stick with it for a long period of time, then I would probably recommend getting a cheaper wheel. It's not going to hurt the hip pocket as much. It'll also give you the opportunity to have a bit of extra cash there to buy things like a racing rig, where you can actually sit in there in a little cockpit so everything sits in the right spot, rather than trying to sit on the couch with a wheel stand, which is not a very good experience, or worse yet, bolting it to your desk. I think if you're entering into the hobby and you 100% know that this is going to be something you're going to stick with, and it's going to be something you're going to be doing for years to come, then yes. And if you've got the cash, buy one of these, because it will give you more than enough power and capability to grow. You can start quite weak, and then you can kind of dial it up as you start to get more experienced and get better with it, and you're after a bit more power. It will save you having to go and buy a new one in a few years' time. But as I said, if you're unsure if this is for you, and you're not sure if the sport's going to be something you're into or not, I'd probably go and buy the cheaper one and then buy all the extra stuff that goes with it, and you can always sell it later and upgrade to the better one. Okay guys, I got a couple little things I just want to mention before we wrap this video up. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's subscribed and sort of joined the channel over the last little bit. You guys have been incredible. I honestly didn't expect anyone to ever watch, let alone comment on my videos. So I just want to let you guys know that I appreciate the feedback. On the feedback note, if there is stuff that you guys want to see on this channel, please let me know, because I want to keep this as interesting for you guys. It's as much for you as it is for me. So if there's specific stuff you guys want to see, leave me a comment and I'll add it to my big list of things, and I'll try and incorporate your ideas as well. I will have a Corolla video coming out soon. I'm currently waiting on parts to turn up from overseas, so that's kind of just put a bit of a hold on it at the moment. It's no longer white for anyone that was watching and following along. That'll be in the next video, so you have to wait for then to see where it's up to. But yes, thanks guys for sticking around. If you guys have made it this far, I appreciate it. I will catch you guys on the next one. And as always, if you've got any questions, leave a comment down below and I'll try and get back to you. Thanks for hanging out, and catch you on the next one.